Do you know who this is? I'll bet you don't. This is our 15th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, William Rehnquist. Rehnquist was born in Madison, Wisconsin, to Father William Benjamin, who was a paper salesman, and Marjorie Peck, who was a civic activist and fluent in 5 languages. As a child, Rehnquist told a teacher that his career plans were to change the world. For elementary and high school, he attended public schools. Rehnquist briefly attended Kenyon College in Ohio before serving in the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II, where he never saw any combat but was stationed in North Africa as a weather observer. After the war ended, Rehnquist attended Stanford University, where he received a bachelor's degree and master's degree in political science, and eventually a law degree where he graduated at the top of his class. During Rehnquist's time at Stanford University, he dated his future colleague, Sandra Day O'Connor. Rehnquist also attended Harvard University, where he received a master's degree in government and ended up at the top of his class. Rehnquist was appointed Associate Justice by Richard Nixon in 1971, where he was considered a right-wing extremist by his opponents. As a conservative justice, Rehnquist voted against Roe v. Wade and was one of 2 dissenters in this landmark Supreme Court case. Rehnquist was nicknamed the Lone Ranger for his willingness to vote in line with his own political and legal beliefs, and voted against school desegregation and in favor of school prayer. Eventually, Ronald Reagan named him as Supreme Court Chief Justice, where he framed a series of conservative rulings on abortion, affirmative action, and capital punishment. Rehnquist's conservative rulings also came to light when he was the presiding Supreme Court Chief Justice in the impeachment trial of Bill Clinton. Rehnquist remained in office until his death in 2005, where he is remembered as a Chief Justice with decidedly conservative views.
The case of Reed v. Reed was a dispute between Sally and Cecil Reed, the parents of Richard Lynn Reed, who had died, and it was over his estates in the state of Idaho in 1971. Both parents had filed for Richard's stay after he had died, and the court voted in favor of Cecil because of a code Idaho had that gave males preference over females. Sally appealed this decision. It was taken to the district court, where they said it violated the Equal Protection Clause and overruled the probate court's decision. Cecil then took the case to the Idaho Supreme Court, where they gave Cecil the estate again under the code that is mandatory for men to be preferred over women. Sally took it to the United States Supreme Court. Here, Chief Justice Warren E. Burger said that this preference rule is against the 14th Amendment and reversed the decision.
United States versus Nixon. Who was involved in this case? President Nixon, the Supreme Court Justice, and the President's advisors. When did this court case start? The United States versus Nixon court case started during the mid-early 1974. What happened? In June 1972, Nixon and his 4 advisors broke inside the Democratic National Committee offices in the Watergate complex in D.C. Nixon and his 4 advisors had cameras and bugging equipment. Nixon installed a taping system which recorded all of their conversations. Soon these recordings were discovered. Nixon refused to release them, claiming they were protected under executive privilege. Why did this case go to the Supreme Court? Since Nixon didn't allow to release these tapes because they were protected under executive privilege, the court acknowledged that Nixon was in violation of privilege. The court declared that no president is above the law. Nixon handed over the entire tapes that relieved that he had personally engaged in the cover-up of burglary in the Democratic National Committee's office. Nixon was in violation of the Constitution due to misusing executive privilege, but also for burglary. What was the decision by the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court decision resulted in an 8-0 ruling against Nixon. Nixon later resigned on August 9, 1974.